Welcome to the After the Noise podcast. I'm Dr. Jen Bradley, licensed psychologist, and this is where we talk about everything your GLP-1 is changing besides the number on the scale. You started a GLP-1 because you wanted to feel better. And in a lot of ways, you do. The food noise is quieter. The scale is moving. People are noticing. By every external measure, things are going well. So why do you feel kind of flat? Not depressed exactly, not sad, just muted. Like someone turned down the volume on your life. Things that used to bring you pleasure don't quite land the same way. Food you used to love doesn't interest you. Social situations that used to feel warm feel like obligations. Even good news doesn't produce the reaction you expect from yourself. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something important. You're not imagining it. You're not ungrateful, and you're not alone. I'm Dr. Jen Bradley. I'm a licensed psychologist with more than 30 years of clinical experience, and I'm also a woman who has been on a GLP-1 medication. I created After the Noise because the psychological side of this journey, the part that happens after the food noise quiets, almost nobody is talking about. Today, I want to talk about one specific piece of it that is gaining a lot of attention right now and that deserves a real clinical conversation. It's being called Ozempic personality, and while I don't love that term, I understand why it exists. Here's what women are actually describing when they use that phrase. A general emotional dimming, less pleasure in activities they used to enjoy, a feeling that's hard to put words to. One patient described it to her doctor as feeling like the lights had dimmed, but you couldn't really explain why. Less excitement, less interest, a kind of low-grade blankness that sits underneath an otherwise functional life. Clinically, what they're describing has a name. It's called anhedonia, a reduced ability to experience pleasure or reward. And it makes complete sense that some women experience this on a GLP-1 once you understand what these medications are actually doing in the brain. GLP-1 receptor agonists don't just act on your stomach. They act on your brain's dopamine and reward system, the same system that governs how much pleasure and motivation you feel. The medication quiets the constant signal that food is urgent and rewarding. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. That's the mechanism behind the reduced food noise. But here's where it gets complicated. For many women, that dopamine signal was doing more than managing appetite. It was also providing the daily hits of pleasure, reward, and motivation that made ordinary life feel worthwhile. When the medication dials that down, it doesn't always dial it down selectively. Some women find that the quieting extends beyond food into other areas of life where reward and pleasure used to live. That's not a character flaw, that's neurochemistry. Now, I want to be careful here because this is nuanced. Not everyone experiences this. Research also shows that GLP-1 medications can improve mood for many people, possibly because of their effects on inflammation, metabolic health, and the psychological relief of finally feeling like your body is working with you instead of against you. The emotional trajectory on a GLP-1 is not uniformly negative. For many women, it's genuinely better. But for the women who are experiencing this flatness, this dimming, I want to say clearly, it's real. You're not making it up. Your doctors are beginning to hear it. And it deserves more than being told to be grateful for your progress. The reason this doesn't get talked about more is partly because the clinical trials for these medications largely excluded people with depression and other mental health conditions, and didn't measure mental health outcomes as primary endpoints. That means we have a generation of women navigating this in real time without adequate data and without being prepared. That's the gap after the noise exists to address. So, what do you actually do with this? First, and I want to say this clearly, if you are experiencing significant depression, persistent low mood, or thoughts of harming yourself, please talk to your prescriber and reach out to a mental health professional. That is beyond the scope of what I'm talking about today, and it deserves immediate, direct clinical attention. What I'm talking about is the more common, lower-level experience of emotional muting, the flatness, the reduced pleasure, the dimming. And there are a few things worth understanding about it. The first is that food was likely doing more emotional work for you than you realized. For many women, eating is a source of daily pleasure, reward, comfort, and stimulation. It can mark transitions in the day. It can provide anticipation, satisfaction, small moments of relief. When the medication reduces that, it doesn't just change what you eat. It removes a reliable emotional resource without replacing it. The flatness many women experience isn't only neurochemical. Some of it is the absence of something that was quietly doing a job. The second is that your brain adapts. The reward system is plastic. It responds to experience. Women who begin finding pleasure in other sources, movement, connection, creativity, rest, often report that the flatness lessens over time. Not because the medication changes, but because the brain finds new pathways to reward. That takes time and it takes intention, and it is not as simple as being told to find a new hobby, but it is real. And the third is that this experience is information, not failure. If you are feeling emotionally flat, your brain is telling you something about what food was providing that you haven't yet replaced. And that's not a problem to be ashamed of. It's a map. The emotional side of the GLP-1 journey is bigger than most people expect. Not because something has gone wrong, but because the medication is touching parts of your psychology that your prescriber wasn't trained to address and that the culture has no language for yet. That's what this channel is for. Every week, I bring you the psychology behind what you're experiencing so that you can stop wondering what's wrong with you and start understanding what's actually happening. If today's video resonated, I'd encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. And if you're looking for something more than a weekly video, if you want a structured roadmap for the psychological work of this journey, my newsletter is where I deliver that. The link is in the description. You came here for a physical transformation. The medication is handling that part. What After the Noise is here for is everything the medication quietly uncovered. I'm Dr. Jen Bradley. I'll see you next week.